Good morning. Our learning objective today is to identify the features of a text. Our success criteria are: we're going to discuss the purpose of a newspaper, we're going to identify language features, and we're going to identify layout features. So today we're looking at newspaper reports, but first we need to hear more of the story. So let's listen to Chapter 2, Part 1 of Beowulf. As the night shadows fell over Heorot, Hrothgar and his queen escorted Beowulf and all the Geatish heroes to their beds. Leaving the great mead hall in the care of the thanes of Denmark, they cleared away the benches and spread the floor with beds and bolsters and, as so often they had done before, made a dormitory of the great hall. Out of habit, these warriors kept their weapons near to hand, always ready for war, their shields and hand swords at their sides, and, on the benches nearby, their mail coats, their mighty helmets and spears. But not one of them expected any attack that night. Safe in their hall, so they thought, they fell asleep at once and slept soundly. It was a sleep they would pay for dearly, and soon. For Grendel had a mother, a murderous hag, as hideous a monster as her fiend of a son, and now she was a bereaved mother, out for revenge, maddened by her loss, and she would be savage in her grief. With vengeance brimming in her soul, she came to Heorot in the dead of that night, all the Danish lords fast asleep inside, each lost in his dreams. How quickly were these dreams turned into a sudden nightmare. She may not have had the monster strength of her son, but she was thirsting for blood, and she came in amongst them and powerful in her fury. The thanes quickly roused themselves from their slumbers, sprang at once to arms to fight her off, but they were not quick enough. She tore down Grendel's arm, that hideous trophy, but so precious to her. She snatched up the sleeping Aesir, Hrothgar's most favourite lord, and then, seeing so many swords raised against her, made her escape. She had to be satisfied with this one kill. It was revenge enough for her. Away over the night moors she went in the darkness, clutching in her fierce embrace the bleeding Aesir, found her way back to her distant fen to gorge herself on his flesh. How sweet was the taste of vengeance to this horrible hag. Meanwhile, all Heorot was in uproar. Swiftly summoned to the hall, Hrothgar heard the dreaded news that Aesir was dead and gone, his beloved friend murdered. He called at once for Beowulf. Who else could he turn to? Aesir could not be saved, not now. Not even Beowulf, that victory-blessed Geat, could do that. But if anyone could destroy this demon mother, it was him. The wise old king, distraught with sadness, opened his word hoard and spoke his heart to the Geatish prince. Aesir was my hearth companion, my best and oldest friend. Side by side we stood in many a bloody battle, striking for our lives for each other. And now he's dead. No more than a meal feast for Grendel's bloodlusting mother. Last night for us you killed her son, tore the life out of him, and now she has had her grim revenge. I do not know, and I cannot tell where she has gone to, but country folk have often told stories of two such ogres haunting the high moors and mists. One of them, it was said, was more woman in shape than man. A twisted monster woman, they said, a giant of a creature, demonic and unnatural. The other they called Grendel, that fiend from hell you so bravely destroyed. We thought at first these were mere imaginings, stories told by simple people with simple minds. How wrong we were, and how bitterly we have paid for it. They never spoke of a father to this monster, though all of them said he must have been the very devil himself. But time and again they saw a mother, looming out of the moor mists. None of them ever dared venture to this hidden place where the monster and his mother lived, for it is known to be a place of wolves, of wild moors, dark fells and perilous paths. Somewhere there, they said, A torrent of water plunges into a deep earth to make an underground channel that passes through vaulting caverns. Here, these ogres had their loathsome lair. 'Tis no distance from here, but no man of sense has ever ventured near the place. Even a wounded stag, hard pressed by baying hounds hot on his scent, would rather face the hounds' tearing teeth than plunge into that bottomless stream. Sometimes I have heard that these waters stir themselves into such a rage that they swirl up into the clouds and the whole earth weeps in terror. I have no one else to turn to. If you dare, as you dared before, then find this hideous sea hag. Seek her out in her unlovely lair and destroy her. I shall reward you as I did before, with gold and treasures from my hoard. My generosity will be even greater this time, I assure you. Then Beowulf, Ecgtheow's noble son, replied, For a fighting man like me, daring is everything. How else will a fighting man be remembered if he does not dare? I cannot banish your grief, great king, but I can and will avenge your loss. Of that you can be sure. I shall quickly find where this hag of hell has gone to, and I promise there will be nowhere she can hide. No fold in the field, no ditch, forest or craggy cleft, no watery haven, nowhere. However deep she dives, I shall find her, and when I do, your revenge and mine will be swift and sure. So they rode out after her together, Danish king and Geatish hero, their lords and thanes beside them, their shield bearers marching alongside. It was not difficult to see which way she had gone. Along woodland paths, over the high moors foul with fog, they traced her bloody steps, following where she had gone before, dragging her bloody victim. The trail narrowed between the cliffs, and the path up here was tortuous and treacherous. Up over scree they went then, and down again onto the fens, a haunted, dreadful place where no one could ever live, nor would ever wish to live. Sensing danger all about them now, Beowulf and his warriors went ahead to scout the land. They came then to a cheerless cluster of ash trees by a rushing stream that tumbled beneath a rocky crag, and beyond that they found a dark, deep lake stained with blood. And they all knew at once whose blood it was. Worse evidence was to come, for they saw left there on the edge of the cliff the most grievous sight, a shear's head. Stirred to new fury, they let out an eager battle cry, sounded the war horn loud and long so the whole world could hear their anger. Roused and enraged by the challenge of the battle horn, a giant sea serpent slithered to the surface. They saw now that the lake was teeming with them, and with countless strange writhing water snakes too. This place was truly a home of monsters. Think of 5 things that have happened so far in the whole story. You could write them down in your book if you like. Pause the video and have a think. So here are the 5 things that I came up with. Number 1. Hrothgar built a mead hall. Then Grendel came and terrorised the Danes. Thirdly, Beowulf heard about it and decided to help. Next, he came to Denmark and fought Grendel and pulled off his arm. Finally, Grendel sloped off to die, and there was a celebration. Now, some more things have happened in the most recent chapter that we heard, but this is as far as we're going to go with our newspaper reports. Have a think. What's a newspaper? What's the purpose of a newspaper? Why do people print newspapers? Pause the video and think about the questions. So, the main purpose of a newspaper is not to tell people the news. It's to make money for the people who print the newspapers. Different newspapers have different opinions and tell stories in different ways, depending on which people they expect to buy their newspaper. It's important to know that newspapers often print opinions, not just facts. Look at the newspapers in the file Newspapers 1 in your inbox, or just look at the newspaper on this page. What features can you see? What tells you it's a newspaper? Pause the video and make a note of some of the features that show you that this is a newspaper. Here are some newspaper features. At the top we've got the date, tells you when the newspaper was printed or when it came out. The price, so you know how much to pay for it. The masthead is the name that we give to the name of the newspaper. That appears on the newspaper every day. We've got teasers. These are little sort of bits of text that tell you something that's going to be inside the newspaper. We've often got a picture, and the picture will have a caption to tell you what it is. The headline tells you what the main story is about. The stand first is a sentence or short paragraph that summarises the whole of the story, tells you what you're going to read about. The byline tells you who the story was written by. And newspapers are often printed in columns. This is to make them easier to read. If that small text went all the way across the page, it'd be difficult to see where the next line started. So newspapers are printed in columns. When we make newspapers at school, we don't always use columns because it's quite difficult to write them in our books. So we're just going to write all the way across the page. But it's good to know that newspapers are usually printed in columns. So this week, you'll be writing newspaper reports about Beowulf's defeat of Grendel. I've given you a newspaper on the next page for the day before Beowulf fights Grendel. Have a read through and see what features you can identify. I've also attached the newspaper in your inbox. There's a file called Newspapers 2. If not, just look at this picture and make a note in your book of all the different features you can see. If you can, read the text, look how it's written, look what tense it's in, look what person it's in. What language features can you see? Can you spot alliteration? Can you spot sensational language? What other features can you see? Make a note in your books, and as I say, if you can, print off the Daily Dane, stick it in and label the features. And that's the end of today's lesson. If you can, print and stick your Daily Dane in your book and label the features.